If you're looking for your next big freeze drying inspiration, this is the video for you. Today, you're going to meet the innovative entrepreneurs behind ShrimpSnaps who are transforming their own farm raised pharmaceutical grade shrimp into a premium freeze dried pet treat. If you're currently researching or you're wanting to know what the next product idea you need for your freeze drying business, this episode is really going to reveal exactly how they spotted their opportunity and bring it to life. This interview is part of the Frozen Assets podcast, which features entrepreneurs in the freeze drying industry. I've got a lot of different episodes available for you to listen to, both on Apple and Spotify, as well as watching it on YouTube. So if you want to find out more about entrepreneurship in the freeze drying industry, go ahead and subscribe and find your local platform. Now, let me introduce you to the team at ShrimpSnaps. All right, welcome to another episode on the Frozen Assets podcast series. We're focusing on entrepreneurs in freeze drying and people who are really making real unique products with things that are not even freeze dried yet, but they're exploring this new, exciting, creative product that they're going to bring to market. And fortunately, today I got connected with a really innovative product called ShrimpSnaps. And we've got two great people representing the company, and they're going to introduce themselves and let us know kind of what they do with the company, as well as what they're exploring with freeze drying, and maybe actually give you inspiration on what you can achieve or what you can look at doing in freeze drying as well. So, hey, without further ado, Michael, Owen, thanks for joining me. If you guys could both introduce yourself and let our audience know what you do with ShrimpSnaps or even just your parent company, that'd be really great. So, Michael, why don't we start with you?
Very good. Well, David, nice to be with you. I'm Michael Zabel. I have the privilege of being the Chief Operating Officer of Itero Life Sciences. Itero's Life Sciences, its foundation began with the acquisition of technology from Texas A&M to grow shrimp in shallow water. We acquired that technology, licensed the patents related in the United States and across the world, and we developed the technology. We started out with benchtop stuff from Texas A&M, so we had to validate the technology, scale it up, and prepare for commercialization. And that was my responsibility to do that. From the very beginning of the project, we recognized the opportunity for three major revenue streams. We're growing shrimp. We're growing them indoors in shallow water. That's our technology. Well, certainly the market for consumer shrimp was available to us. And since we were going to be vertically integrated, do our own processing of the shrimp, handling the shrimp, we also looked at pet treats as a major opportunity for us to use some of the processing and production byproducts, as well as shrimp that were too small for the consumer market, that we could turn them into a pet treat in one form or another. And then the third revenue stream that people are not familiar with, inside the shell of the shrimp, is a remarkable molecule called chitin. And that molecule, chitin, can be further refined into chitosan. And because we grow the shrimp under total controlled conditions, our shell material is absolutely pristine. And the chitosan that we produce is for medical device and pharmaceutical applications. It is actually a medical miracle from the shell of that shrimp. So my background, David, is I'm largely a food guy. I've spent most of my professional career in the food industry, also on the manufacturing side. And in most of my food career, I was a marketer and an executive in food companies. So this has been a very exciting project for all of us, and happy to join you, David. Owen, why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
I'm Owen. It's nice to talk to you again, David. I'm a student at Southwest Minnesota State University, and I work really closely with Michael on the marketing side. And then I also have the opportunity to go in and learn on the treat development side as we develop a new treat beyond just ShrimpSnaps. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. We're talking about kind of like how you started getting into creating ShrimpSnaps, which is the freeze-dried branded product. But I'm curious, Michael and Owen, about this chitosan, because I'm, in layman's terms, that happens to be my last name. But can you put like the benefits, if people aren't familiar with that, like what do you mean by its benefits to medical devices and pharmaceuticals? Like what types of things would you use that in to benefit humans?
Yeah, I can answer that, David. Chitosan is there'll be a quiz, by the way, at the end of this. Chitosan is a cationic molecule, which means it's positively charged. And it's the only positively charged molecule in nature. That positive charge gives it in a great deal of versatility in medical and pharmaceutical applications. That positive charge, the nature of the molecule itself, makes the molecule antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory. It's a natural antibiotic. It will attack and destroy gram-negative or harmful bacteria. It is most famous for its hemostatic qualities. The elements of our blood, David, are negatively charged. The chitosan is positively charged. And in a very simple way, the positive and negative charges attract one another, of course, and chitosan helps advance thrombosis or coagulation of the blood. So we have several clients that use our chitosan for hemostatic purposes. However, we are involved in surgical aids, various sprays. We have several companies that are working on cancer therapies. We have one company that's working on the neurological disorders of Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. Chitosan is naturally biodegradable in our bodies. So in the pharmaceutical world, it is used as an excipient. That's the technical name. Told you about the quiz. It's an excipient, which means it carries the therapy into the body. It's also an adjuvant, which means it enhances the performance of the therapy. In particular, vaccines is where it's an adjuvant, but it's also an active ingredient, which means it participates in the therapy that the drug is approaching. So we have a broad array of activities around. If you go to Google Scholar, David, and type in the word chitosan, over 2 million scholarly papers will come up on the research that's been done on this molecule. So it's pretty exciting stuff for us. It's humbling that this creature, this tiny creature, can produce this remarkable molecule.
Yeah, so that seems like a huge focus for the companies. What made you think of getting into a direct to consumer pet food type of market like snaps and looking at freeze drying your shrimp?
Go on, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so I wasn't quite here yet when they made the decision, but I've been directly involved since then. We all know that freeze drying preserves so much of the nutrients of the shrimp, and we kind of overlooked, from what I understand, how good shrimp is for dogs and cats. Like, it is so good for them. So we've just taken the approach. We looked, and one of our coworkers found Food Dynamics in Wisconsin, and we made a partnership there, and we did our first production run, and they turned out beautiful.
I would just build on that from the beginning of our company, the three revenue streams, the consumer shrimp, pet food, and the chitosan, of course, have always been part of our strategy. I think that the freeze drying was a delightful find for us as a way to deliver the shrimp and the qualities and the nutrition of shrimp that can provide to companion animals.
And Owen, you're familiar too with this product as a basis for the treat. So what is it, straight shrimp that the product is, that's it for the treat, or is there other components that you're combining into it that make that treat even better? What kind of went into the process of choosing the shrimp as the base?
The shrimp itself, in our ShrimpSnaps, we just have shrimp. Because shrimp is a human food and the humanization of pets is a huge movement, we decided to go with just shrimp for these ShrimpSnaps. Shrimp is a powerhouse, so it's high in protein, it's low in calories, it's rich in omega-3s and 6s, it has natural antioxidants, and from our responses, the pets have been going nuts for just the shrimp. It's also a novel protein, so allergy-prone dogs that are allergic to shrimp, beef, salmon, that kind of thing won't be allergic to shrimp because they haven't been introduced to it yet. And because we grow it in our zero waste indoor aquaculture facility in Valentin, we are growing it in a human facility. These shrimp are grown for humans, and it's actually grown for even further yet. It's grown for a pharmaceutical product.
I would add to that, David, that we are experimenting with how we deliver it. Today we've got raw shrimp, which the shrimp is entirely whole, head and everything. We have a couple different sizes of that. And then we're also processing the shrimp, beheading it, peeling it, and then cooking it and freeze drying it. So we are experimenting with how in particular, and of course there are people who like each of those. They prefer the raw. The product seems to be more natural with the shrimp entirely. There's really no difference. But and then there's people, of course, who want to deliver. Owen made a really good point that from Generation X on, people are humanizing their companion animals, which means they're going beyond treating the animal as just a pet. It's part of the family. And one of the things about treats, it's one of those moments of interaction where an owner and the pet have this slight moment of interaction. Usually when the dog or cat eats, it goes off to its dish and there's not much to it. But this is a moment where it's just you and your pet. And shrimp is a human food, so they understand it. They enjoy it themselves, hopefully in many cases. So it's such a wonderful fit to this, to actually hand the pet something that looks exactly like I eat myself. For a baby boomer like me, it's kind of strange, but that's the way it is.
It kind of leads up to my next question. What sets a shrimp pet treat apart from, liver and other types of things that we're seeing in the marketplace? Like, you've probably already spoken to that, but how do you feel like you're positioning like a shrimp pet treat compared to other pet treats in there? Is there any added, is it more of like, hey, this is a protein that's available, or like what can you describe about that?
Our shrimp, as Michael has taught me, we have a vertically integrated system. From start to finish, we own these guys. We are raising these shrimp. And what makes that so special is we don't add anything into them. These are no GMOs, no antibiotics, no heavy metals. Our shrimp are raised in a biosecure system that recreates the ocean environment. So we have a really special facility that can grow these shrimp at a pharmaceutical grade quality.
Yeah, we're really delivering, in addition to that emotional interaction between the pet owner, is we're delivering nutrition as well as that emotional fun of doing it. So we deliver a product that's extraordinarily good. I think our advantage over the other sources of protein, you mentioned liver, chicken, beef, boy, that's been played really hard. So Owen used a wonderful word. It's novel. This is something new, and in the case of our freeze-dried product, there are no other ingredients. So it's a simple, straightforward thing. Consumers understand what a shrimp is. And so I think that gives us a competitive advantage. And again, our vertical integration, our chain of custody ensures that the pet owner is getting a very high quality product.
Hey, David with the Freeze Dried Business. Thanks for watching this interview. We'll get to more topics here shortly, but I wanted to jump in here and encourage you to subscribe to this channel and join the Freeze Drying Business community. This is one of the most concentrated, most tight-knit industries that I've ever been a part of. And if you're not connected with this YouTube channel or with some of the events that I'm hosting, you're really missing out on informative content about the freeze drying industry. So subscribe right now to this channel or to my email list down below in the video description. You'll get weekly content delivered straight to you about the freeze drying industry. Let's get back to the interview with ShrimpSnaps. For someone not being a pet owner, I don't actually own pets, but I've owned pets in my past childhood. But I think of like my cats, obviously eat fish and seafood, that type of thing. But is the ShrimpSnaps applicable to other types of pets besides just cats?
Yeah, so we have a
fun
review that came in, and I'll share that here. Let me pull it up. It's pretty cool. So we had a customer write a review that said, all of my pets love these snacks. We have lots of different pets, including dogs, a cat, turtle, goldfish, gerbil, chickens, turkey, and goats. And they have all tried these Shrimply ShrimpSnaps and love them. And my cat even likes to play with them. So yeah, it sounds like turtles. We've actually had a few people come to us like, hey, my turtles or my fish love the ShrimpSnaps as well. And we get a kick out of that.
Make no mistake, David, we're focused on dogs first.
Yeah.
And then followed by cats. The market, David, if you're familiar with pets, we spend over $65 billion a year feeding our animals in the United States. $14 billion of it is just treats. So there's a huge market for, obviously, the cats and dogs, but I suppose there could be a market for turtles. You have to have more Rockies in the world who keep turtles. But I can't stress this enough, that I have a daughter who's a Generation X, millennial type of lady. I love my dog, but she's nuts. She takes care of this dog in a way I would never think of. I love the dog, wags its tail, all that good stuff, but she's over the top. And she uses our ShrimpSnaps, and our dog loves it. So it's quite a treat for them.
Yeah. Now I want to talk a little bit about the way you're freeze drying this and maybe the application. So when someone opens up a shrimp snap to feed that treat, is it something that has to be reconstituted, or do you just feed it straight as a dried, freeze-dried treat to the pet? How have you experimented with that? What does that look like?
Go ahead.
You could just feed it to your pet right as you pull it out of the bag. You don't have to rehydrate it or anything.
That's great. And then maybe walk through kind of I guess, going from what's your process look like from taking some raw shrimp and that's live, right? And then going to a freeze dryer, because, some people who are going to watch this, most people have a home freeze dryer, you're looking at it from that standpoint. But then there's also people that have commercial freeze drying units, but everyone has a very specific process of how they go from something raw to putting it in the freezer to then putting it into the freeze dryer. What's that experience been like, learning how to freeze dry and the process of that?
Let me start. You can build on it. Of course, as we mentioned, we raise the shrimp ourselves, so we harvest them on a regular schedule. At that point, the shrimp are harvested. They're dispatched. We dispatch them by immersing them in ice cold water. They change in temperature. They are marine animals, so it's a saltwater environment, very warm water. So we dispatch them with cold water, and that immediately kills them. And the quicker you can kill protein, the better. We make a decision. We have various sizes that would go into the raw aspect of it. And today we freeze the shrimp. And then we would also have shrimp that we would then send to processing. We do our own processing. We have a state-of-the-art piece of equipment called ShrimpWorks that deheads the shrimp and peels it, or takes the shell off. We do that to the shrimp especially, then we cook them before they are freeze-dried. And so our process is to harvest them, freeze them, in some cases cook them, and then also send them into a freeze dryer. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. I miss anything, Owen?
Nope, I don't think so.
So freeze drying, what does freeze drying look like? Do you have a specific type of unit that you use? How large is your facility when you look at freeze drying? And how do you choose a certain machine over another to start doing your R&D and getting this started?
We were fortunate to find Food Dynamics in Wales, Wisconsin, just west of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. And they are involved in the freeze drying of all manner of proteins and other products as well. I don't know the model number of their machine. Their freeze dryer has a 1,500-pound capacity, which fits our harvest sizes and our flow very well. So very happy that they take our shrimp in a frozen state. They have trays and racks that roll into this freeze dryer device to shut the door, and the freeze drying takes place. So we're fortunate to find them and very happy with their performance. I think as our business grows, we are certainly because we're almost 500 miles away from Wales, Wisconsin. As our business grows, we're going to look to maybe take some of those steps ourselves, and we are looking into equipment, but we're not there yet. Nothing displeased with them. They've done a great job. We just, as business grows, it might be more practical for us to do it ourselves.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with Sean Jones over at Food Dynamics, and he's got a Parker freeze dry system there.
You know more about it than I do that.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't sure if you guys had
Parker. Yeah.
Some harvest right units or something like that at your facility, or if you've chosen the path of a co-packer or a commercial toll freeze drying company. So yeah, tell me what kind of the experience with working with Food Dynamics and just someone who kind of knows the freeze drying process. What's it kind of taught you about freeze drying and working with them to get your product to market?
I think that Sean and the team there have taught us that we have to learn. The size of the shrimp, the duration of the time are all critical, and each different size of shrimp, and whether cooked or raw, has its own requirements in terms of that. So that's something we learned early on. But the experiment was not a difficult thing to do, and we certainly didn't waste any product doing it, but we now have target water activity numbers we're looking at and time and duration based on shrimp. So I think it's been a great experience, a learning experience working with them.
Yeah. Looking at, if you'd be willing to share about just looking at kind of figuring out freeze drying costs, as does a different type of process, right, from raw. But when you're using a freeze drying commercial company like Food Dynamics and looking at a co-packer, I'm assuming obviously all the financial calculations and things still made sense, but can you talk a little bit about like how did you research to know that it was that that mark of time where it financially it made sense to continue on with the research and development of your freeze dried product. Can you talk a little bit about maybe thinking back, like working through those challenges? When did that kind of everything kind of click for you?
I'll start on, and maybe you can build this. First and foremost, David, I'm a marketer. So I look at the marketplace and the pricing opportunities for these products, which is a great opportunity for us. And so at the retail price points that we looked at, the expenses that are one of our biggest expenses, the way I would say this, that we're still in our developmental stages to full production. So we've had to travel with less than truckloads of shrimp and things like that. That's not very efficient. Looking at all and his tolling charge to do the freeze drying, he also did the packaging for us, which was very helpful. That cost that made the product very viable in the marketplace. And we can only get better at the cost because we're at such a developmental stage. I'm very pleased with the opportunity it presents.
Yeah.
The way we think about it, David, is that we produce X pounds of shrimp out of our facility. We have the opportunity to sell the shrimp as a consumer shrimp. We are, as I mentioned earlier, that we are working on a more complex shrimp air-dried product that we call buoy bites. So we can look at this and say which one of these channels produces the best opportunity for sales, profit, market share, and growth. And the freeze-dried is passing that test.
And so is there much competition within the freeze-dried shrimp marketplace? I mean, you're going to lump yourself into freeze-dried pet food, but is there much competition with the shrimp side or seafood, pet treats?
Owen, can you answer that? I don't see much.
Yeah, we don't see much. The stuff we do see is fished shrimp, so out of commercial boats, which has its own problems and limitations as well. Something that we can also pride ourselves in by farming and growing these shrimps is our shrimp are low in iodine, which can be an issue for some dogs. And that's where we can kind of set ourselves apart from other shrimp that are freeze dried in the marketplace.
Yeah.
I think the competitive landscape is pretty obviously. We're competing with other forms of protein. Food Dynamics, they freeze minnows and all kinds of things and sell them. I don't know what they're all used for, but I think right now we've kind of got the space to ourselves. And as Owen mentioned, shrimp that are wild caught, shrimp that are imported, that we have competitive advantages over them. One of the interesting parts of our technology is that because we grow the shrimp indoors under total control conditions, we can harvest shrimp at a particular size. So we can go into our production facility and pull out small shrimp for cats and small dogs, pull out shrimp for larger dogs. So we have flexibility that maybe other people thinking about entering this space would not have necessarily.
Yeah. So Michael, with your marketing background, how do you determine how to market your product when there's so many different avenues to go down a path? Like, and if you haven't checked out ShrimpSnaps.com, I mean, check out their packaging. It's really great. But how did you decide what avenue to go down? Like you mentioned, the size of the shrimp. Also, Owen, you mentioned low in iodine. How do you make sure you're not getting too narrow of a target audience, but also you don't want to get too broad to where you're trying to compete at the largest level and you get overlooked by some of the established brands right away?
Yeah, without sounding pandemic here, first and foremost, we focus on what we do. We certainly keep an eye on the competitive landscape, but we're very confident in our own product. And so today we're starting out very small, a couple SKUs. Most of the product acceptance at this point has been the cooked and freeze-dried shrimp. That seems to be more popular. But there is a niche developing on the raw side we probably cannot ignore for a long term. So from a marketer's perspective, sell the features and benefits of your product. There are competitors out there, and I'm sure in the freeze-dried world, there's lots of options for people that start to develop especially. But what are the features and benefits? Like Owen was talking about, many of what I call the features and benefits of the product, the low iodine, the fact that our shrimp are pollution-free. Focus on that. Pick a couple SKUs, get your product established in the marketplace, and then look for opportunities to add either line extensions, raw versus cooked, different sizes, and then look for ways to expand beyond what you're currently doing. But Features and benefits. First and foremost, sell to the consumer what you do and do well. And hopefully you can compete that well. And I think you can focus. I mean, in all my years of business, David, focus is my one lesson that I've learned. Is don't try to do everything at once, and don't try to be everything to everybody. Would be my message.
Yeah. It kind of brings up our next topic of kind of our future outlook in freeze drying. I talk a lot about this because people want to know, it would stink if you're heading into a fad and you think like, yeah, I'm just going to jump right into this. But when you do a calculated approach to researching the market and everything, it's clear to me that the freeze drying market is still getting ready to just explode in terms of not just the US, but globally. Because usually a lot of countries are about 2 to 3 years behind what the US is doing. Freeze drying has really taken off in terms of a lot of different products. But I wanted to ask you guys, when you look at freeze drying and now that you're into it, and you're a little bit more exposed, where do you feel like freeze drying is headed within the pet food side, let's say? Have you thought about that at all? Do you feel like you can give an opinion about that?
I'll start, Owen. You certainly follow me here. On the pet side, consumers want treats and food for their companion animals like they consume themselves. In a lifetime of marketing food to consumers, what used to be attitude, what I call attitude, where I want low fat, I want things that are good for me. Years ago, that was an attitude. That is now turned into a behavior. We watch what we eat. We are conscious of the label. We're conscious of the nutrition, and that is starting to pass over to the pets as well, because they're beyond family members. They're beyond pets. They're family members. And so they're just as conscious about what they feed the animals. So I think the opportunity for us and for all the freeze drying is to start to deliver a very natural product, very few ingredients, very simple to understand, and nutritional and beneficial to our beloved companion animals. And I think if I put the technology marches on, David. I'm a bit older than both of you, so I remember the days before the microwave. And as a food marketer, it was like, oh, man, people aren't going to put their food in microwaves. It doesn't cook it properly. It's a way of life today. I wonder if freeze drying isn't similar to that. In my own mind, I think about, is this a way to more efficiently deliver food? Moving around frozen food and refrigerated food is not an inexpensive thing. And could freeze drying for human beings, for human consumption, be part of our technological future? I've learned not to discount that. I'll let Owen build on that. He's
Oh,
a
that was
different
well
generation
said.
than me, but
That was well said. I go on. I'm young, so I'll go on all the Instagrams, Facebooks, TikToks, and that's the new rave. It's the new thing, right? Freeze dried is everywhere. You can't hide from it. And as far as for me, like giving it to my own dogs, I have 2 little bird dogs. They love them. They love every freeze dried treat. So yeah, I see nothing but freeze. I mean, I see freeze dried in the future as I mean, it's going mainstream. And as Michael said, with equipment, as equipment becomes more affordable, freeze dried treats are going to become more of the premium baseline.
Yeah, Owen, I want to ask you, so being a student, at a university, like, did you ever think that you'd be partnering up with a company that wanted to innovate their raw product into a freeze drying, and you get to know all that? Or like, what's that experience been like for you?
It's been nothing but great. I actually have been studying agronomy at school, and I've had a lot of fun coming here because when you get down to the microbial level, which is a lot of what soil health is, everything is super similar. There's a lot of crossover and a lot of overlapping. So I've had a lot of fun coming here and learning from the team about everything amongst from shrimp diets to dog diets to cat diets, and from other partners we've had. And then on top of that, learning from the marketing side from Michael. He is a marketing genius. I'm not here to, I'll give my $10 later, Michael. I'm joking. But yeah, just learning, being a sponge. That's been a huge part of just learning in school as well. Taking what I've learned here and bringing it to school, and then taking what I've learned from school and bringing it here. It's been super fun.
Yeah, I think it's probably a super exciting time for you. So now we're talking to, this is an entrepreneurial podcast on freeze drying. So I wanted to ask you if you had any advice as you guys have worked through this journey of bringing a product to market, and you're still kind of in that phase. You're still not yet, officially doing a huge launch yet, but like, what's the what do you have? What advice do you have for someone who's looking into developing a freeze drying business or a freeze dried product?
Well, I'll go back to my earlier comment. First of all, focus, determine what you want to do, what market you want to approach, and focus on that market and make that work. I always advise people to, first of all, have a good scan of the marketplace itself. What is going on? One of the things that's interesting about the freeze drying, as I mentioned earlier, minnows and all the different things that are being freeze dried, which means people are reaching out for alternatives to what's being done today, the transport of food, the preservation of food. So you look at those leading edge trends. You use the word entrepreneur, David, and let me give you my definition of entrepreneur. The definition of an entrepreneur, and I've worked for a couple of them in my life, extraordinary people. They change the rules of a marketplace. They look at a marketplace and they say, what's going on there today and how can I add value? So you change the rules, and our entire life at Otero is one of changing the rules. We've changed a lot of them. We changed the rules in Chitosan. We changed the rules in consumer shrimp, and here in the pet food space, we have yet again another opportunity to change the rules. And when you do that, that's when you add value to the marketplace. You add value to the product for the consumer to consider it. So I'd be really careful about doing what everybody else is doing. Me too. Well, they're freezing minnows, I can freeze minnows. That isn't being an entrepreneur. That's just being an operator. And so that would be the one thing I would say to encourage your listeners, that if you're thinking about it, and if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, how do you change the rules? How do I come into this space with something new, some different approach, something that changes things? So I don't, you think to add to that, Owen? I don't.
Oh, I think that was great. Well said.
Agreed too, and I think you can be an entrepreneur in two aspects of that. One is if everyone's freeze drying Skittles, let's say, you can be an entrepreneur in the way that freeze dried Skittles is being used as maybe a powder for flavoring up something that you really like. You can be an entrepreneur in the way it's packaged and presented.
Oh yeah.
You can be an entrepreneur though also in creating a unique product.
Mhm.
And I also think an entrepreneur's characteristics are not letting things get you distracted from what you're focused on. And that's a true market changer as an entrepreneur, because if you're going to try to break the mold and you're going to try to create change, like everyone's going to say, no, that's not the way you do things. And so you're the one who has to take 3, 5, 10 years, even longer to let that change happen. I mean, look at our social media way of life nowadays. I mean, even probably 15 years ago when Facebook wasn't public yet, I think some people were saying this is going to be something that you are going to be so connected with. It's going to be integrated in every part of life, just the social media. And yet people were like, nah, it's just going to be a way to talk to friends. And, but that it took somebody to be bold enough and steadfast enough to say, this is the way I'm going to do things. And even if I'm wrong, let's say, I'm willing to stand on that stone or whatever. So, and see it all the way through. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, I just build on what you said, David, because it's so true that there's many ways to change the rules, as I put it. You can change the product, change the rules of the product, change the rules of how you distribute the product, change the rules, how you price it, how you position it, how you promote it. You can change it. You can take an existing product and change the rules in the marketplace. And my friend Owen here is teaching me a lot about social media. It's rule changing for me, but now it's kind of the norm for his generation. But wherever you find a way to change the rules wherever you can find that. That's, I think, my advice to everyone.
So what's coming up with ShrimpSnaps? What can the audience and the consumer, when they're watching this, what can they expect to see from ShrimpSnaps over the next year?
Owen, what are we doing, buddy?
We are working on a gut healthy formula out of shrimp, a shrimp based gut healthy formula and shrimp based functional treats. We'll call them buoy bites. And we're really excited about that because there is a lot of junk out there. There's a lot of junk treats out there, and to have a really healthy treat and a gut healthy treat. The gut is the start of everything else. It is your second brain. I've lived like that my whole life and believed in that. What you eat is what you are. And yeah, we're really excited about that because that can be translated into the dog's microbiome as well.
On the ShrimpSnap side, David, we We've gone to market with what we call our preliminary package. We just got to market, so we're rolling out new packaging, new promotion, and then once we have that all in place, we're going to push really hard on the social media direct to consumer. We are not ruling out going into retail. We have to, before you go to retail, if you want some advice for your listeners, before you go to retail, fully understand what you're getting into. The demands of the retailer are dramatic. And so we too have to get prepared for that. As experienced as we are with it, you still have to be prepared. So I see that. And then just to build on Owen, we're looking at like I said, an air dried complement under the Shrimpley's brand name. We'll have ShrimpSnaps, and then we'll have Buoy Bites, and there may be products in the future. I think there's an opportunity for us to segment the market as a sportsman. So his animals are sports dogs. I think that is a segment that we should probably tailor products directly to, both freeze dried and air dried. You can create segmentation so that you're focusing on a particular customer group. I see that in our immediate future as well.
Right now, we're running a gift for your listeners. If they visit ShrimpSnaps.com, you'll find our products there, our sourcing story, and even some really adorable fan photos. And we've created a promo code for your listeners on this podcast. When they're checking out, use promo code FDP25 for $5 off an order over $25. And right now, actually, we are running a giveaway on Instagram. So we're doing free shrimp snaps for a year. And you can find the info on how to enter at the Shrimpley's Instagram or Facebook. So if you guys want to all head over there, you can get free shrimp snaps for a year, which would be awesome. I bet your pets would be pretty happy.
That's what I was going to ask you is where can we buy these? And so yeah, shrimpsnaps.com. I'll put everything in the video description here as well as in the podcast description, but use FDP for freeze dried podcast 25. Is that right?
Yep. FDP 25. Yep.
And what does that get you?
$5 off an order over $25.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, that sounds great. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining me on this podcast. It's been a real pleasure. Sounds like we're going to have another podcast episode here and maybe like the latter half of 2025 and see where you guys are at.
Check in
with some of that air dried product too. So really exciting. I'm really looking forward to your success, and I'm sure it will come. So thank you for being on the podcast. And yeah, if you want to check out more episodes with other entrepreneurs who are doing freeze dried products, check out the next couple of thumbnails, and we'll see you in the next video.
Good. Thank you, David. Thanks for having us.
Wow, what a great interview with a new company that's up and coming in the freeze drying space. ShrimpSnaps is a new up and coming freeze drying company, and they started out with a product that they're already producing right now, which is raw shrimp. And then they found that the freeze drying process gives them a lot more growth in sales, but also preserves that product that they spend so much money to grow and refine in the industry of pet food, human consumption, all of that. So if you're new to freeze drying and you're trying to figure out what type of product should you produce and start selling or research to start selling, take a look at the concept of what they're doing. They're taking something that already exists that maybe even you're currently making, and can you try experimenting with freeze drying to come up with that product? There's a lot of applications in freeze drying. There's taking the raw form of some product like a strawberry and making it a snack that someone eats directly. There's putting that actual dried product inside other things like granola or cereal. There's also ways to use that dried product out and make it more powderized so that you can add it to maybe your own spices or creating some type of powder that you really couldn't do with the application prior to that. All these are different applications with freeze drying that can preserve a shelf life of a product that normally goes wasted and making it more shelf stable. And that's an attractive product for a lot of companies, not just to store on their shelves, but to use in their products that they're already making. So if this inspires you to start a freeze drying business or just look at freeze drying, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. There's a ton of more opportunities in freeze drying, and you can get inspired through other entrepreneurs that I've interviewed. Check out the videos coming up next in the thumbnails. I'll see you there.